Okay, shall I start? How the aqueous is drained. The main important thing about the rise in the IOP is there is a problem in the aqueous drainage. Either there is a overproductions or the difficulty in the drainage pathway. So what are the drainage pathway? They are either the trabecular meshwork or the evioscleral outflow. So the major portion of the aqueous is drained by the trabecular meshwork, and about 30% it is drained by the evioscleral outflow. So today we will discuss about the congenital glaucoma. So sometimes in exam you have to be very sincere. I have put the pictures in the slide. So these pictures are very important because this picture will only be kept for you for your spotters in your exam. So see the pictures in the slide. It looks like how the eye is. You can see somewhat whitish blue and somewhat bigger eyeball. So congenital glaucoma, we will discuss in the different headings. So see the particular child with the eyeball. So this is a chart about primary congenital glaucoma and secondary congenital glaucoma. So in primary congenital glaucoma, there is a predisposing to the optic nerve damage and optic nerve damage. So there is a optic nerve cupping, optic nerve failure is there. So in a secondary congenital glaucoma, it can be due to trabecular dysfunctions in the secondary glaucoma, or it can be due to the lens dislocations, which causes a pupillary block, or there can be the increased evioscleral resistance. So which all leads to the increased resistance to the aqueous humor outflow, and this causes the elevated eye pressure, which eventually leads either to the loss of the ganglion cells, which causes a thinning of the optic nerve fiber layer and which causes the optic nerve damage. Or it can also cause the Descemet membrane damage, so the corneal clouding, and when there is a corneal clouding, the child will have the photosensitivity. So due to this increased photosensitivity, they cannot see the light, so the child cannot say. So what they will do is they will always hide the head under the pillow or the light. So these all leads to the decreased visual acuity, so irreversible visual field loss, which may progress to blindness. So this is a consequences how the primary congenital glaucoma causes the damage of the optic nerve, and the secondary causes which gradually causes the optic nerve damage, and eventually there is decrease of the visual field. So this flow chart will show you how the sequelae of the congenital glaucoma. So depending upon the age of onset, the developmental glaucoma are termed. So these all are during from the birth to till the development. So they are all given in different terms. So what is true congenital glaucoma? When the IOP is raised during the intrauterine life and child is born with the ocular enlargement, so it occurs in about 50% of the cases. So this is a true congenital glaucoma where the IOP is high since intrauterine part. So true congenital glaucoma is a primary congenital glaucoma. So it's present in 1 in 10,000 birth, and 50% are isolated congenital glaucoma, and 60% diagnosed by 6 months and 80% by 1 year. So 65% affected are male and 70% bilateral involvement. So this is about the true congenital glaucoma. So now coming to the development, which we have already discussed, embryology, but for a revision. So development of the angle. At the 5 months of gestation, there is a continuous layer of endothelium which create a closed cavity of anterior chamber and anterior surface of the iris insert in front of the primordial trabecular meshwork. So over here you can see the endothelium which creates a closed cavity in the anterior chamber and the anterior surface of the iris. So it forms the primo-trabecular meshwork. In the third trimester, endothelium progressively disappear from the pupillary area and the iris. Now you remember where is the pupillary area and the iris. So in the figure, it's shown there. The cavitates over the angle and gets incorporated in the trabecular meshwork. And the peripheral uveal tissue begins to slide posteriorly to expose the trabecular meshwork. At birth, in a newborn, the iris and the ciliary body have recessed to level of the scleral spur, and posterior sliding of the uveal tissue continues during the first 6 to 12 months of life, thus forming the adult angle configuration. So primary congenital or infantile glaucoma is evident either at birth or within the first few years of life. Juvenile glaucoma is recognized later in the childhood, that is after 3 years of age or early adulthood. And the term developmental glaucoma includes primary congenital glaucoma and glaucoma associated with other developmental anomalies, either ocular or systemic anomalies. So always keep in mind, when is the juvenile glaucoma start? Juvenile glaucoma is also a childhood glaucoma, but it is diagnosed after the age of 3 years till the adulthood. So over here comes the boophthalamus. Boob means bullseye or cow, and ophthalmos means eye. So boophthalamus, which is the enlargement of the globes, which we see like the cows or bullseye. So it is called the boophthalamus. So this condition appears when the onset of elevated IOP occurs during the age of 3 in a primary congenital or infantile glaucoma, or in pediatrics glaucoma associated with other ocular or systemic abnormalities. So glaucoma in the pediatrics age group is heterogeneous, and most of the cases are sporadic. So you can find any cases anywhere, and about 10% cases exhibits an autosomal recessive inheritance with incomplete patterns, penetrance. So you have to remember always what is the rate of the congenital glaucoma, that is 1 in 10,000. This is a very important question, and it occurs more in the male child, and about 50% of the cases, 50 to 60% of the cases are male. So this is a very frequently asked epidemiological question. Primary congenital glaucoma, which account approximately for 50 to 70% of the congenital glaucoma, and occurs less frequently than primary adult glaucoma. So the disease is bilateral in 75% of the patient, and 65% are the boys. So and some of the percentage, it varies from the books to books. So which book you will read, that book you will give as a reference. And mostly the examiner don't like Khurana book, but it's no problem if you will say I have referred other book also, but I have read Khurana and this is from Khurana. But thing is that the wrong thing you must not read, and you have to refer, you see some book also in the meantime, like Parsons and Kansky. The disease affects only one child in 10,000 birth, and it is defined as glaucoma appearing between the birth and the age of the 3 to 4 years. So up to this age, the eyeball is distendable, so that the eye can noticeably and progressively enlarge when the intraocular pressure is elevated. So as at this age 3 to 4 years, there is a keep on enlargement of this eyeball, so that when there is a more IOP due to the pressure, the eye is more increased and so enlarged, so there will be it looks like a bull's eye. So this pathogenesis from Parson, which is nicely written over there, and I request all of you to read Parson also. You can buy Parson and Khurana. The Khurana new edition book has come, and you can buy both the books from Saptagandaki. It is easily available in any of the store. So you have to read, but So primary congenital glaucoma is due to failure or abnormal development of the trabecular meshwork. So the iris may not completely separate from the cornea so that the angles remain closed by persistent embryonic tissue. So first, you have seen during the development, which I have shown over here in the slide. So at 5 months of gestation, there is a continuous layer of the endothelium, which with the closed cavity near the anterior chamber. And at the third month, gradually their cavities form and peripheral uveal tissue begins to slide posteriorly. And at birth, these are separated. So sometimes they may not be separated and they persist. So depending upon the degree of obstruction, the result is a permanent rise in tension of the eye. But since the circulation of the aqueous is maintained, although at the lower rate by the anterior ciliary veins and the uveoscleral outflow, the rise in the tension is usually neither marked nor acute. So there is a other way of drainage of the aqueous, which we have discussed. Some portion also drains through the iris and veins through the uveoscleral outflow, so that there may not be the acute distensions of the eyeball, or because some amount of the aqueous is drained by the other pathway. So both eyes are generally affected, and the congenital glaucoma occurs more often in boys than in the girls. And neonatal congenital glaucoma occurs with more extensive congenital malformations and has a poor prognosis. So other maldevelopment are there, then it has more poor prognosis. Owing to the distensibility of the sclera in the children, the child behaves differently from the adult organ under this increase of pressure. So not only does the lamina cribrosa gives away, producing the deep cupping, but the entire cornea and sclera stretch so that the globes gradually enlarge. This stretching and expansibility may mark the increased pressures on the clinical examination. So what happens over here? So in case of the adult, there is no distensibility of the eyeball. So once the intraocular pressure is increased, you can directly notice that the increase of the IOP during the measurement. But in case of the childhood glaucoma, so if the eyeball is increased, that may mislead, or that may provide this space for the aqueous, so that there may not be the increased IOP as that much of the eyeball is increased. So that will mislead, that can mislead us also. And in case of the child, so the childhood glaucoma and the adult glaucoma, they will be little bit of different in the presentation, though there is an increase of the intraocular pressure. So with some amount of the increase of the intraocular pressure, in case of the adult glaucoma, you will see the red eye, painful eye, whereas in case of the childhood glaucoma, they may not be that much of the pain as we think if the increase due to the increased expansibility of the eyeball. Exact mechanism remains still unproven, but many theories has given to this why the IOP eyeball is enlarged or why there is a congenital glaucoma. So some scientists have put forward their theory. So Barkan's and War's theory, this is the most applied theory over here. So because treatment of this congenital glaucoma is also given by the Barkan's, and so we have more, this is the most appreciable theory. So it describes an imperforate membrane, which is called the Barkan's membrane, given after this scientist, covering the anterior chamber angle, though histologically not confirmed, but generally it is agreed that the aqueous flow obstruction occurs at the level of trabecular meshwork. Another theory given by the Allens and colleagues suggests the normal angle formed by the cleavage of the mesodermal tissues, and Mann's postulated normal angle is formed by atrophy, and the Kupfer's, Cassius and Kupfer's, which is purpose faulty migrations of differentiations of the neural crest cells, so was postulated to explain the defect noted in congenital glaucoma. So Barkan's theory, it says that there is some covering, there is some membrane at the level of the trabecular mesewalk which obstruct the this outflow. So you have to remember the Barkan's theory. So there are various classifications about the congenital glaucoma, but I have given this Hoskins anatomical classification. I think this is the easiest one, and at least you don't have to remember the classification, only for the cause or how can you describe. If you remember the terminology, it will be easy for you to understand. So it can be the isolated trabecular dysgenesis. So malformation of the trabecular mesewalk in the absence of iris or corneal abnormalities. So congenital glaucoma can be only the problem or maldevelopment or malformation of trabecular mesewalk. So it can be the flat iris insertion that is anterior to the scleral spur, that it can be the anterior insertion, posterior insertion, mixed insertions, or concave insertion. So iris which is like this, so it can be the flat or it can be the concave insertion. So this is given by, this is called the Hoskins anatomical classifications, and which is described as isolated trabecular problem, isolated so iris and trabecular problem, and corneal trabecular problem. So iridodysgenesis is iris anomalies are usually seen with the trabecular dysgenesis. So it can be the anterior stromal defect, that is hyperplasia or hypoplasia, or it can be the anomalies in the iris vessels, or it can be the structural anomalies. So anomalies in the iris vessels, so there can be persistent of tunica vasculosa lentis, or it can be the anomalous superficial vessels, or structural anomalies like it can be the hole in the iris, colobomata, or aniridia. So it can be the trabecular dysgenesis, or it can be the iris dysgenesis, or it can be the corneal dysgenesis, that is the corneal anomalies are usually seen with the iris dysgenesis. So it can be peripheral, it can be mid-peripheral, or it can be central corneal defect. So cornea size, microcornea or macrocornea. So what is macrocornea? When you will say the microcornea, so what is the normal diameter of the cornea? So normally we assume that it is 11 millimeter and it is 11.5 millimeters. So if it is more than 13 millimeter, then it is megalocornea or microcornea, and if it is micro, if it is less than 9 millimeter. So in the horizontal diameter. So in peripheral, corneal dysgenesis or condition exists in which the breathing iris filament or bran attached to the prominent cord-like Solvay's line, which is called the posterior ambrotoxins. So how these presentations are noticed? The presentations are always noticed by the parents or the guardians, because the child cannot say. So what are the clinical features that we have to notice when a child is brought to us? The characteristic finding of the infantile glaucoma includes the classic traits of presenting symptoms in the newborn. So that can be epiphora, photophobia, and blepharospasm. So this is a classic traits, and we have to see very nicely. This occurs because of the irritations of the corneal nerve due to the increase in the intraocular pressure. So they have a watering eye. So we have to think in mind the watering of the eye at this age. This is a very, very important questions for both the practical and theory exam. Photophobia. So photophobia, what are the causes of the photophobia at this age? And the blepharospasm. So watery epiphora, photophobia, and blepharospasm. So an infant becomes irritable to the point of burying its head in a pillow to avoid the light. So due to the increased intraocular pressure, there are the sensation is supplied by which nerve? So trigeminal. So what due to the irritations because of the increased intraocular pressure, the child becomes irritated, and they like to, due to the photophobia and photophobia, they try to bury the head under the pillow. So we have a corneal edema. 25% of the affected infant at birth are more than 60% by the 6th month. They have the corneal edema. So in a child, when you see the corneal edema with the torchlight, you can see the hazy cornea, somewhat bluish tinge in the cornea. So corneal enlargement greater than 12 millimeter in the diameter. So Descemet's membrane detachment. So tear in the Descemet membrane is called the Habs striae. So occurs due to the corneal stretching and occurs typically oriented horizontally or concentric glassy parallel rays, which is also called the railroad track to the limbus. So this is very important terms, and this is given to you in your exam also. Even in a spotters, I have seen the external bringing the slides by putting this picture. So it is very important for you, the corneal signs of this. So Habs striae, what is Habs striae? These are simply the horizontally parallel rays to the limbus. So this is a picture where you can see the cornea, the increase in the diameter. So this is not more edematous cornea. Over here, this is a more edematous cornea. Whole of the cornea is hazy. So you can see the whitish cornea with somewhat bluish tinge. And you can see over here the Habs striae, the parallel concentric line towards the limbus. The corneal endothelium will migrate over the defect, allowing the edema to clear. However, the irregular astigmatism may persist and interfere with the vision. So because of the increased edema, though it's clear, they will cause an irregular astigmatism. If the IOP is uncontrolled, tearing, photophobia, and blepharospasm worsens. And continuous enlargement of the cornea from the tear of the Descemet membrane causes the corneal scarring, erosion, and ulceration. So at this stage, if we do not treat it, if the intraocular pressure keeps increasing, then the other sequelae like Descemet membrane detachment, scarring, the scar formations or erosions or ulcerations can occur. So stretching and ruptures of the zonules can cause a lens loss, subluxation. So lens is with the help of the suspensory ligament, it is hangs on either side just behind the iris. So if the eyeball is keep on enlarged, then what happens? There will be the more stretching of these zonules, which causes the rupture of the zonules, and the lens is subluxated, means it is displaced from its normal position. So blunt trauma in this enlarged eye may result in hyphema or rupture of the globe. So in this type of people, if there is a small minute trauma, blunt trauma, so they can lead to hyphema or even the globe ruptures. And phthisis bulbi may result as a final outcome of this. So phthisis bulbi means shrinkage of the eyeball where you cannot identify the ocular structures. So you will see the this at the end stage. So what is the thing which we have to carry it out is general anesthesia. So examination under anesthesia, we cannot examine the child like this. And slit lamp examination is very important. So we have a portable slit lamp also. So we can see in the suppose examinations under the anesthesia with the help of the portable slit lamp, we can see applanation tonometry is done. So we have not only the tonopane which have the same principle as that of the Goldmann applanation tonometry. So gonioscopy we can do, and optic nerve evaluation. So dilated fundoscopy we can see, and retinoscopy. So if performed in child older than 5 years of age and with some training in the child as long as 3. By the age of the 8 to 10 years, some child can cooperate for the full quantitative visual field examination also. So these are the mandatory examinations. So depending upon the child age, so we go for examination under anesthesia, or we go for the child without the anesthesia, but we have to see these things. So what are the things you will assess in the examination under anesthesia? This is also very important you should know. So you have to measure the intraocular pressure. So either with the COs, if you don't have other method of measuring tonopane or ear puff, then you So you have to measure the intraocular pressure by the pseudotonometer, which is a cheaper and the easiest portable method of measuring the intraocular pressure. Assessing the cornea, so we have to assess the cornea clearly with the portable slit lamp. If we do not have a portable slit lamp also, we can see with the help of the torchlight also. So the diameter of the cornea is measured, and we have a Castroviejo caliper instrument, so with which we can measure the corneal diameter. So if we do not have the Castroviejo, the grossly we can measure with the help of the ruler also. And gonioscopy we perform with the gonio lens. Ophthalmoscopy with direct ophthalmoscope. If the cornea is too hazy, then we cannot do the ophthalmoscopy. Axial length measurement and ultrasonic biomicroscopy or cycloplegic retinoscopy is done. So IOP measurement with the different methods. So whatever is available to us, with that we will do, we will measure the intraocular pressure. So these are the different methods of measuring the intraocular pressure. So this is very important slide for you. So what is the differential diagnosis for this condition? So you have a watering. So you have to differentiate from the congenital daphnocystitis or epithelial defect or conjunctivitis, and corneal enlargement is there. So you have to see whether it is a myopic, because myopic patient have also got the quite enlarged cornea and X-linked megalocornea, and corneal clouding, haziness or hazy cornea is there. Then what can be the cause? So we have to ask the detailed history whether there is a broad trauma or inflammatory corneal disease or any corneal malformation like dormoid tumor or sclerocornea. So these asking the different history, we have to rule out what is the conditions. So see the child with a ophthalmos and a hazy cornea, corneal edema. So it can come at this stage also. So these are the different picturized presentations of measuring the different measurement. So it is very important if you remember this picture, or if this picture is kept to you in a spottings, if you can write it, measurement of the IOP, corneal diameter, it is also very essential or very important for you. And treatment, the management is the surgical, and IOP should be lowered by the use of the hyperosmotic agent acetazolamide, and beta blocker surgery is taken place. Because if the IOP is very high, then we cannot go for the surgery at that time. So we have to use some medication to drop the intraocular pressure. Then the final treatment is the surgical treatment. Besides that, patient parents counseling is very important. One set of operation is not the full treatment for the child. We have to go for the second setting of the operations and any other operations also following the complications. Amblyopia management, there are many other consequences and sequelae, so that counseling is a very important part. A complete general physical examination by the pediatrician, it is also very important. There can be other congenital anomalies also, then the treatment. So whenever the management question comes to you, so in case of the congenital glaucoma, these three patterns you have to explain. So in a parent's counseling, what are the things you will say? What is glaucoma? What is and why it is need for the surgery? Why it's need for the multiple surgery? Need for the lifetime follow-up? Combinations of the problems like IOP can be high, amblyopia management, refractive correction, keratoplasty, and counsel regarding the choice of the professions to the child also. So these are very, very important. Under this topic, you have to counsel the parents. This is very important for the sensitive part of the treatment. And the medical treatment with the different drugs. So the anti-glaucoma medications I will take in the last of the class as after completing as a whole glaucoma. And drugs like beta blocker, second line of drugs. So we go for different groups of drugs. Then the surgery. So goal of the surgery is to normalize and permanently control the IOP of the drug and prevent the progressions of the optic disc copying and corneal diameter, and also to preserve the visual field and to maintain the binocular stereopsis vision. These are the aim of the surgery. And surgical options are goniotomy, trabeculectomy, and antimetabolites, and trabeculotomy with trabeculectomy. So nowadays we do not go for the goniotomy, trabeculectomy. So we have the fourth one, which is the trabeculotomy with the trabeculectomy. So this is the desired surgical treatment for our choice. So combined trabeculotomy and trabeculectomy is the preferred surgery with best results. So we nowadays go for this surgery. So provides two pathway for the outflow. So with there is a study which is done by the Mandal et al. So which shows that there is a high success rate of 94.4%. So over here, so you will see the opening is made, and you can make either the triangular flap, or you can make a rectangular flap, also the scleral flap, and you do the flap over here like this. So you got a trabecular mesh work over here, and over we suture it. So the diffuse blade is formed. Blade is just a balloon like. You will see the structure after suturing the conjunctiva. So it's just a bypass channel. Just opening is made at the trabecular meshwork, and a bypass method is done. So that for the drainage of the aqueous, so you will see the decrease cornea is quite clear over here than over here. So goniotomy, you just do with the Barkan's goniotomy knife. I have told you the Barkan's theory. So he used one knife. So it's given at the Barkan's knife, which is passed through the limbus at the temporal side. And under the gonioscopic control, the knife is passed through the anterior chamber to the nasal part of the angle. And incision is made in the angle approximately at the root of the iris and the solvage line, so at the 75 degrees, so that this there is a opening is made. So it is eventually success rate of 85%, but the cornea must be clear at the goniotomy. So trabeculotomy is useful when the corneal clouding prevents visualization of angle in case where the goniotomy has failed. So these are the surgery where we choose the surgery, or when we do the surgery. So failure of the goniotomy or trabeculectomy, we go for the trabeculectomy, or we can nowadays have a glaucoma drainage implant, and if nothing is possible, then we go for the cyclodestructive, means we destroy the ciliary body with a cryotherapy. So there will be less pain, and but we cannot save the vision if the vision is poor. So follow-up of this type of the patient is, again, we have to go for the examination under anesthesia. So every hospital has its own protocol, 2 weeks to 1 month follow-up. So in the examination under anesthesia, we also follow again the same protocol. Then again evaluation after 3 months, normal IOP, evaluation after 3 months, and every follow-up in the 3 months, and if possible, we have to see all the things which we have done in the examination under anesthesia. And IOP is not controlled, we have to add the other glaucoma, anti-glaucoma medications, and we go for the second set of the surgery. And if the visual prognosis is poor, then we go for the drainage implant and cyclodestruction and visual rehabilitations by the other means. So end point is that we have to consider normal IOP, clearing of the cornea, reversible of the optic disc, the cupping. So this is the beauty part of the childhood glaucoma, and stabilization of the axial length. And the prognosis depends, best prognosis with the isolated trabecular dysgenesis, and best when once it is between 1 to 2 years of the life. When a child is brought at this age, then we can go for the surgery and they have the best prognosis. So conclusion is, early diagnosis and prompt treatment can preserve that much amount of the vision what is there. Responsibility of the surgeon does not stop with the surgery. This is also very important. Visual rehabilitation is equally important as the IOP control, and attempts should be made to familiarize the parents with the protected course of the illness. So all the parents counseling is very important at this part of the glaucoma, congenital glaucoma treatment, because it is a lifelong treatment of the child with the different age. There are some associations with the glaucoma, congenital glaucoma. So you have to go through it also. Sometimes it can come in your MCQ. So aniridia, ectopia lentis syndrome, Sos-Weber syndromes, and other nevus of aorta. And if these conditions are seen, then we also have to evaluate for the congenital glaucoma. So, okay. So over here we have in the congenital glaucoma. So thank you all, but all of you